Hi everyone, we're going to start our video lecture about object orientation. As you can see, we changed the environment a little bit. Now we're going to be working with PyCharm. I strongly recommend you to create a package for loading all the classes and examples that we're going to have. It's called Python_OOP. It's the same one you can find in our links. And the idea is for us to understand how classes and all the components inside object orientation they work, right? So said that, we can start just explaining what is a class. Think as an abstract construction in which we will capture all the features and characteristics that we want to describe in our program. As for now, it's a very simple program. We don't have much. So we're going to have a sort of an abstraction that will just hold a specific attribute and will have a specific action. In this case here, it's greeting. So later on, we're going to separate our classes and our data structures in a different file. But for now, we're going to do the main program and the class declaration inside the same file. Okay. So I'm going to start also using a proper way of programming our stuff here. So we're going to separate the class structure with the actual program. And we're gonna give this as the standard default, if you want to call it, way of doing this. So all our main programs, they're gonna have this if name equals main, which is our main class, our main structure. We're gonna go there and run everything inside our main program. Okay. So in this case right here, what we're saying is we're going to have a class which is called my class. We're going to have an attribute for that class called num for numbers and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And inside that class, I'll have a function which is called greet. And this greet right here, as you can see, has a default between quotes here parameter called self. And after we call this function here, we're going to return hello world. And what is the self? That all the functions inside our classes, they're gonna have it. Self is the object itself that's calling the function. In other words, think as we talked about in Python, everything is an object, including the object itself. So the object that calls the function has to pass the self object here in order to call that function. But we're talking about object and we didn't define what an object is. Think as object as an instance or an extension here before of the class. So in this case here, let's give it a name of tiny object here. And we're going to say that tiny object is going to be an instance of my class, which means that inside here, this tiny object, I have all the attributes and all the functions available inside my class, which I have it right here. Okay, so in this case right here, I'm saying that tiny object, in this case here we can autocomplete. They have what? They have the attribute num, as we can see, and our tiny object, it has also the function greet, as we can see here. Since the num here, it's an attribute from this attribute, what we can do is, let's print it out just to see how our object it looks like. In this case here, we say this is number, and then just pass this information there over to tiny, oops, I think I deleted tiny object here by mistake. Let me just fix that. And there you go. Okay, now let's run this this example here. You can do this with a right click here and run simple class 1 here. And as we can see, the object for the attribute or characteristic for a tiny object. When we try to access them, it's going to access this num right here, as we can see, 1 2 3 4 5. And oh, sorry, we didn't have this message here printed because it just returned, so we didn't print, but we're going to correct this in a bit. So here, now let's run it again, or you can do Ctrl Shift and F10, it has the same effect. So in this case right here, when we run the action or the function for this object right here, we'll see that this is hello world. Okay, so thank you and happy coding.